Tenno, there's a time-limited mission alert available. Check navigation.
Helps me understand, I think, has given me more insight on how men think, and I can understand why they think about sex all the time.
For a growing number of women in America, being more like a man is the most effective way to pep up your sex life.
I sometimes ask women, when was the last time you had a real long, nice, body-shaking orgasm? And some of them say, what's that?
If that's an experience thereafter, Teddy prescribes testosterone, usually in a cream.
This is a women's dose of testosterone. It's 4 milligrams per quarter teaspoon, which is a usual starting dose for a woman. It's a very small dose. I'll say you can reserve a little bit to do what I call the dot technique. And that would be to save a little bit of your daily testosterone dose to use about an hour or two before sex. And put that on the clitoris and on the inside of the labia. But it also increases the intensity of arousal in the genital area so that you have a much more deep and intense orgasm. And it, over time, increases the size of the clitoris so that it's much more available for stimulation and satisfying orgasms. And so I said, well, just try this for a couple of weeks and see what happens. And they come back with a big grin on their face. And I actually had one woman just last week come in and say, you sure were right about that testosterone. I was as horny as a mink and felt great. And she said it's saved her marriage. Save a little bit, save a little bit, save a little bit, save a little bit, save a little bit.
The light went on when Dr. Rinker told me what the problem was. And then when I started seeing a difference, finally, I was going to be happy with myself.
After 8 years of marriage and 2 children, Grace actor's libido had hit rock bottom.
It's hard to believe it's the same person. I think there's a sparkle to me now that there wasn't then.
What if you have to go back to being that person?
I don't think I'd be happy.
A lot of women have very low testosterone levels, especially if they've had children, because prolactin, which goes up and it enables us to produce breast milk, drops the testosterone level down to 0.
It was very unusual for me not to be interested in sex. Didn't even care if I never had it again, really.
Grace's T level was so low, she needed double the normal dose. Cream wasn't strong enough.
The needle is very thin, so it doesn't hurt. I felt the difference within 24 hours. I felt, immediate effects.
I didn't know what she was up to. I thought she was taking some type of steroid or something to, get more leaner and stronger.
I started having sexual thoughts and starting feeling horny, or that kind of feeling. You started feeling really sexual.
8 hours after the injection, she's, seems like she's more enthusiastic, more stimulated.
I'm not really keen on taking drugs. I don't want to have to take it, so I've tried to stop taking it, but because I noticed such a difference in the way I feel, that I have to take it again.
There's been precious little research into the effects of testosterone on women. But one Dutch scientist has investigated how the male hormone influences female sexual response. Adrienne Tweeten gave extra testosterone to women with normal levels to see if they got more turned on. They took either a 0.5 milligram dose of testosterone or a placebo.
These subjects were all interested in sex. This was the first time we did an experiment with normal levels of testosterone and normal sexual interest. There was nothing wrong with these women.
After 4 hours, they entered the lab, where they were shown a porn film. Tweeten measured how aroused they were with a probe inserted into the vagina.
We zijn klaar om het experiment te beginnen. Normally, there will be an increase in sexual arousal in the testosterone condition. This increase was much higher than in the placebo condition.
The experiment proved even a normal woman will get more turned on with testosterone.
I felt the arousal, of course, in my vagina, but also in my heartbeat and in my temperature.
We saw also an increase in sexual lust a few hours after that testosterone peak.
For science, this is a dramatic breakthrough. Testosterone is a proven aphrodisiac. It actually makes women randy.
I think you must feel it before you believe it, because it's such a difference, but it has such a big effect.
Is this every bloke's dream come true? Just add testosterone and no woman will resist you. Real life just isn't as simple as a porn film.
For a man, I think it's more physical for a man. It's like scratching an itch for a man.
Boosting a woman's sex drive won't necessarily sort out her relationship.
he still doesn't get it as often as he'd like. And that's not because of testosterone, though. It's because, we're having marriage problems. We're not getting along in our marriage. It's not because of testosterone. It's not because I'm not interested in sex. I'm just not interested in sex with him. No amount of testosterone is going to make me interested. It's helped me become a stronger woman. I definitely feel more that I stand up to him more now than I used to, definitely.
Women in the UK are also stumbling on this surprising side effect. Yes, testosterone makes you feel sexy, but it also makes you feel powerful.
I have patients who may have started testosterone because of poor sexual response, but they realize that the major benefit to them is the psychological boost they get in terms of being able to cope more effectively in a male-dominated environment.
Women over and over tell me how much it's improved their energy, how much it's improved their motivation, how much it's improved their willingness to volunteer, to step forward, to take command of a situation.
British women are even using the male hormone to storm the last bastion of machismo, Westminster.
I've seen women in high-profile women in political life who felt that they've not been able to cope so well with their potentially very dominant male colleagues, particularly in the House of Commons, and that they needed, their testosterone on a regular basis to enable them to shout back effectively.
Even if you're not an MP, for ambitious women in Europe and America, here's a drug that promises the masculine focus and aggression you need to get to the top.
You have more energy, you have more power. You have more energy, you have more power. You have more energy. I take testosterone when I have to act like a man. It's amazing to see how you can be like a man for a few hours and to stay a real woman after. And in some occasion in your life you need it, then why don't we use it?
When Claude Mahot started up her own company at 30, the pressure got too much.
I need a little support, and testosterone was for me a real support for my own business. What is the main effect, I think, for testosterone is the power you have in your mind and in your body. You see clearly what you want. And people around you in your team, when you are working with a team or with clients who will account around you or people around you, they feel that.
But this masculine power can come at a price. A woman on testosterone may be more like a man, and not just on the inside.
She might well get deepening of her voice. She'd get very greasy hair, she'd get greasy skin. She might get hair growth around her nipples. And she might even get, if the levels are high enough, growth of the clitoris. Now, she might recognize what a normal-sized clitoris is, she might not, but you can get phenomenal enlargement of the clitoris sometimes, the size of your little finger, from what should normally be something the size of your fingernail or slightly less. It can actually grow under the influence of male hormones.
It's kind of weighing the pros and cons of how beneficial is testosterone to the negative cosmetic effects, and do I want to do some cosmetic procedures to remove those negative cosmetic effects. Most women that get a really positive effect from testosterone are willing to have hair removal.
For a wife and mother like Claude, testosterone's worth the side effects. It's helped her solve the dilemma of working mothers everywhere.
I think testosterone is a part of the solution of the problem of what a woman has to achieve in her life between 25 and 45 years old.
It improves their energy, their ability to get a lot of work done, and then go home and take care of their family.
Could becoming more like a man be the real answer to having it all?
The world are so demanding to us. You know, we have a life with our family. We have a life for our husband. Works, leisure, sex. It's so many different activities, and testosterone give you maybe the power and energy to put your limits in all these little domains. We have to have the energy to choose and to put our limits and to stand up.
When I give a treatment of testosterone to my wife, she got much more directive. She's much less anxious, so she doesn't bother me with her excessive anxiety. She stays cooler, so it's much more pleasant to be with a person who keeps her head cooler. So I don't regret that she's a little bit more directive and a little bit the chief at home and things like that, because it's much easier as a relationship.
I think testosterone can help you to find a good choice you want in life.
But high testosterone is also linked to crime, violence, and premature death. Does society really need any more?
In terms of our Western society, modern life is a little bit flat, I think, in many ways. So maybe people are trying to get that testosterone buzz back again, if you like.
Testosterone seems the perfect 21st century drug. Stone Age thrills for a high-tech world.
I don't want to really be called a testosterone junkie, but, you know, I'd hate to do without it. And if it makes me feel good, fair enough, I'm going to keep taking it.
If I couldn't take any more testosterone, I think I would feel sad, because it's a part of your life with more color, with more a vision of life, creative life, and yeah, I would be sad.
Until now, extra testosterone has been a luxury for the rich and powerful. Not anymore. US prescriptions for the drug are doubling each year, and like Viagra, a booming black market makes it readily available. Good or bad, testosterone use is now set to explode in Britain.
They're so convenient to use, absorb through your skin, they apparently give you nice normal levels in the bloodstream. But there's going to be a trend, I think, in the coming decades where the availability of androgens and testosterone in the kind of very convenient ways in which it can now be given will lead to its use, overuse, and almost certainly its abuse.
At our present level of understanding, I would be very nervous about a situation whereby people could be slapping on testosterone gel and God knows what's going to happen to their behaviour.
Once natural selection put a cap on hormone levels. Now we can cheat biology.
We're in a world now where we can change that and we can put it to any level we want to. I would not like to have a world where everybody was trying to raise their testosterone levels very high. I don't think it matters if a few people were to do it, but for large numbers of people to do it, I don't think it, I would not like that.
Even in smaller doses, monitored by a doctor, the male hormone has terrifying consequences.
It can be your best friend, but also can be your worst enemy.
Men on replacement therapy discover the drawbacks can be frightening.
There's one serious downside. It's when you drive on the public highway. That can be very dangerous. Because that competitiveness comes into play. You go back to being boy racer. Normally, the son pinches the old man's car. But with me, it was the old man taking out the son's car. It was reverse roles. I used to go down to Southend, down to on the seafront there, and so I used to hunt down the boy racers to sort of give you a little bit of a challenge. I was in the car and this guy come along beside me, and he was on a Kawasaki motorcycle, which was quite a powerful thing, and he gave me a gesture to sort of race him. Well, that was like a red rag to a bull. It really was. So I did. And we took off down the A13, and I had complete tunnel vision. For those few minutes I was racing this guy on this motorbike, something took me over. That competitiveness completely took me over. My family didn't exist, I didn't exist, the world didn't exist, just to get past this bloke on a motorbike to prove a point. Prove a point I'm on testosterone and I'll kill myself. I looked at the speedo and realised how fast I was going, and I just had a word with myself. I thought, what are you trying to do? It really gave me a shake, and I thought, crikey, is this what testosterone does to you? And that was one of the first things I learned. Keep that under control.
Not everyone with high testosterone can control these impulses.
There's a strong overall correlation between testosterone and antisocial behavior, with more testosterone associated with more delinquency, violent crime, misbehavior, marital discord, drug use, and other things. A lot of misbehaviors are related to testosterone.
Men already commit 95% of crime. If we start dosing up with extra testosterone, would that just mean more violence and chaos? According to scientists in Holland, the answer's definitely yes. Testosterone turns us into risk takers.
Testosterone targets the most primitive part of the brain. Our core emotional system misses the fight and flight. So that's what people are craving for.
Van Honk wanted to find out if even the most law-abiding members of society, women, would be tempted to behave more rashly under the influence of the male hormone. He gave half the women testosterone and the other half a placebo and set them a gambling task.
There are 4 decks of cards. 2 of them are risky, 2 of them are safe. They were only told that they had to win as much money as they could. That was the only thing. We wanted to test whether testosterone would induce more riskful behavior in the subjects and less sensitivity for the punishing consequences of their actions in the task.
Despite repeated losses and penalties, the women on testosterone are compelled to keep taking senseless risks.
They learned that the risky decks were giving them the punishments, but even the knowledge that they were going to be punished didn't help. They were still going for the risky decks.
With just a small dose of testosterone, the women's behavior was completely transformed. They became more dangerous and impetuous, basically more like men.
When they take testosterone, they think, I'm in control, which can be very dangerous.
But Van Honk is the first to admit testosterone's a double-edged sword. There are fantastic benefits as well as dangers.
Testosterone could be a factor in you becoming an antisocial person who gets in prison, or testosterone could be a factor in you being successful in your company. It could be both.
If testosterone can make you richer, sexier, and feel younger, it could also lead you to crime, violence, and an early death. Will we heed the warnings, or will Britain be next to fall for the testosterone revolution?
I don't want to live forever. I'd rather 10 good years on testosterone than 30 bad years without it.
He's off the scale, I don't know what to do.
I'm 7'7" now, I might as well be the tallest man in the world.
It's not long enough. He's very tall.
I don't think I could take it if I was much taller.
7'3". Wow.
Kids are getting taller every decade. Now meet 3 who are absolutely huge.
When he reached 7 foot, I was absolutely amazed.
I'm not normal for this world.
There's highs and there's lows.
Look at that lanky length of him.
Adolescence is hard at the best of times, but the problems are gigantic for Britain's tallest teens.
That's when I noticed that kind of feeling. 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 That's when I noticed that kind of feeling.
The way that you think.
That kind of feeling.
The way that you feel.
That kind of feeling.
The way that you think.
If you had an opportunity of winding back the clock, say 20 years, would you take the opportunity or would you not take the opportunity?
Life is much more lively. Colors are stronger. You don't get bored so easy. You really enjoy life much more.
It makes you a better mother, makes you a better wife, makes you a better employee, makes you a better friend. You know, just makes you a better person for everybody.
It's the thing that men have been concerned with for 100,000 years. Speeding up the men and attracting women.
It's going through my bloodstream.
Imagine a drug that made you younger, richer, sexier, and all you had to do was rub it on. Believe the hype, and it already exists. Testosterone, the male sex hormone.
Its flowing colors and spots hold strange beauty, but contain violent storms and jet streams. Could this big, bright ball of weather have been the Star of Bethlehem? Could one of its moons harbor life beneath its icy crust?
We expect that branches of life will exist on Europa, just simply because water is the key feature.
I want to go ice fishing on Europa. Cut a hole, put a submersible, look around, see if anything swims up to the camera lens and licks the camera. That's what I want to do.
And does our own planet owe its survival to this massive cosmic magnet? Jupiter, the giant planet. Jupiter is 500 million miles from the Sun, a giant sphere of intrigue. This churning ball of gas may look like an artist's rendering, but it's the real thing.
Jupiter has the most exotic weather patterns we've ever seen in the solar system.
Jupiter is 84% hydrogen and almost 14% helium, the two lightest and most abundant elements in the universe, rolled into a mammoth mass.
This thing is 11 times the diameter of Earth, and you could take 1,000 Earths and stuff them inside Jupiter comfortably.
Jupiter really is the lord of the solar system. You know, about 70% of the mass in all the planets is in Jupiter. If you're talking about planets, Jupiter is the big boy in the block, and it really does rule the roost.
Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, visible to the naked eye. A day is only 9.9 hours long, and it takes 11.86 years to orbit the Sun. A 150-pound person would weigh 350 pounds on Jupiter. There are thunderclouds made of ammonia, sulfur, and water. Exploring Jupiter would be NASA's most daring mission to date. It's a hostile place with temperature extremes from frigid to fiery. Its electromagnetic radiation is intense. It could kill a traveler to the planet in an instant.
We would need heavy lead protection, and that's very difficult to lift off the ground. So we have some difficult engineering challenges to actually bring human beings to the planet Jupiter.
Landing on Jupiter is not going to happen. Jupiter itself is a very gassy planet. It's made of gas, so you would not have a solid surface on which to land and walk around. You would just keep descending through the clouds and then be eventually crushed by the pressure of Jupiter's atmosphere that make a human trip to Jupiter quite a challenge.
But what if we could go there? Dr. Andrew Ingersoll is an authority on the planet. He takes us for a ride.
You need a special kind of balloon because Jupiter's atmosphere is hydrogen. Hydrogen is the lightest gas. A helium balloon would sink. So the only thing that'll float in a cold hydrogen atmosphere is hot hydrogen. And so you need a hot air hydrogen balloon.
For the past 10 years, NASA has been developing ultra-long duration balloons for robotic exploration. And as we all know, heating hydrogen is a tricky thing. But just how this behemoth was born is a puzzle.
The formation of Jupiter is the greatest mystery associated with the planet.
Some believe Jupiter may have been a failed star. Like the Sun, it had the right ingredients, hydrogen and helium, but not enough mass to create the internal pressure and temperature necessary to have nuclear fusion. So it became a planet instead.
The thought is that there was this cloud in the galaxy that had the same composition as the Sun. And it collapsed under its own gravity, and some stuff was left behind, and that stuff became the planets. And the majority of that stuff became Jupiter, and the rest of course, went into the Sun, and then there were a couple little tiny leftovers like Earth.
Jupiter's spinning gases attracted like elements, and over time grew bigger and bigger in the process. Almost like an oyster creating layers around a grain of sand to make a pearl. What gases and solids Jupiter didn't ingest, it spat out into space.
So Jupiter is like your big brother in the schoolyard, protecting you from bullies that might wreak havoc on your existence.
I tend to think of it as more of the cosmic frisbee guy. It's grabbing things out of space, and it's also tossing them back out. It ends up keeping those objects from the inner solar system where Earth and Mars and Venus are.
By cleaning some of the debris up, kicking some of it out, shooting some of it into the Sun, where it'd be lost forever, Jupiter cleaned out a path that the other planets could exist in some sort of peace.
So dominant is this frisbee phenomenon, Earth may owe its very existence to Jupiter.
It influences the courses of comets and even some meteors and asteroids, so that over the eons, the fact that Jupiter is there helps dictate what happens in the inner solar system. So really, the presence of Jupiter may be one reason why we have life on Earth and habitability and be able to have the Earth a nice environment instead of getting pummeled by so many comets.
There is no greater proof of Jupiter's power play than what happened during a 7-day period in July of 1994. A comet called Shoemaker-Levy 9 barreled toward Jupiter. Once under Jupiter's influence, there was no going back. A missile was on a crash course with a ball of gas. Jupiter's gravitational pull was so great that it broke the comet into small pieces, that came in one at a time. These pieces assaulted the planet at a speed of 37 miles per second.
When you have a missile going at supersonic speeds, you get a shock. You can see sort of clouds of material being jetted up from beneath where it landed.
One of the fireballs generated by the collision with Jupiter's atmosphere flared 1,800 miles into space. Had Earth been in the projectile's sights, the effects of such a smash-up would have been catastrophic, to say the least. Similar to the event that wiped out the dinosaurs.
The energies that were released in those fragments hitting was larger than, on the order of 10 or 20 times more powerful than the entire world arsenal of bombs.
Take Jupiter out of the picture, bring this giant comet into the inner solar system. Where would it have gone? We have no idea. Might have crashed into Earth. If that comet had crashed into Earth, things would be a lot different around here.
The experts believe that comet strikes on Jupiter may be 8,000 times more frequent than those on Earth, thanks to the Frisbee effect.
But it cuts both ways because Jupiter has no value system. When it sees an errant comet, it may attract it and swallow it up, but where it flings it is anyone's guess. And so errant comets can be flung in towards Earth, they can be flung into the sun, and they can be flung out of the solar system.
There's a reason the planet rejects some of the space junk heading its way.
Jupiter, being the biggest object in the solar system, has the most gravity. And so other objects, little fleas that have their own trajectory flying by, are bent from where it would be towards Jupiter, and usually with an acceleration. And that acceleration can cause it sometimes to just be ejected completely.
No earthly Frisbee thrower can match Jupiter's flinging force. It is much faster than any bullet ever known. It rejects things at a rate of 30 miles per second. Jupiter's wonders are hard to fathom. They've captivated man for centuries.
Prehistoric humans realized that it was moving among the stars, and it was one of the planets that they appreciated. And Jupiter was the king of the gods, after all, in Roman mythology.
And there may be a biblical reference to Jupiter.
Ever since I was like 5 years old, I remember people, oh, that was the Star of Bethlehem. And whether or not it really was, obviously we have no way of knowing. But it's not clear whether the star that was talked about is a single star or whether they meant an astronomical alignment of objects in the sky. We don't really know.
It's known as conjunction in scientific terms. According to researchers, Jupiter and Venus did appear as one large star-like object in August 3 BC and would have been visible in the eastern night sky. But it was Galileo, the father of modern astronomy, who made the first recorded sighting of the Jupiter system.
In the early days of 1610, only about 18 months after the telescope was invented, he got his own telescope and he looked at Jupiter.
In 1665, Jupiter's most fascinating feature was discovered. Its giant red eye was actually the eye of an enormous storm, unlike any experienced on Earth. This one has raged for at least 300 years. This weather disturbance is a meteorologist's dream.
Jupiter's great red spot is truly huge. You could take Earth and fillet it out and it wouldn't even really cover the spot.
This storm is the hugest storm in the solar system. Just to give you a feeling about it, it's about 12,000 miles. And the Earth is only 8,000 miles wide.
And the winds blow quite fast around the edge, but it's calm in the center. It's not like a hurricane, which has an eye and very fast, turbulent winds in the center. The red spot's rather calm. If you were in a balloon, it might be a pleasant ride, as long as you avoided the small-scale stuff like the thunderstorms and the turbulent places. Even though you'd be going very fast, it might be quite calm.
Fast as in 350 miles an hour. The fastest wind ever recorded here on Earth was 231 miles an hour. But is it an Earth-like storm?
It's a giant collection of clouds roiling around, lightning going on. So we can only model and imagine what kind of precipitation, but condensation in the form of condensed vapor of various gases.
This famous red spot is a high-pressure system that can take 10 days to complete a rotation.
It's really a backwards hurricane. It's called an anticyclone. That's the name for it. So it goes backwards from the direction of a typical hurricane.
That's not the only curious thing. Hurricanes, as we know them, need water in order to form. There's no water engine in the red spot. This never-ending weather system is feeding on something else. But what? Jupiter's great red spot is something like a non-stop hurricane. It's a colossal storm, complete with violent wind and lightning. Storm chasers would love to go running after it. Dr. Tim Dowling of the University of Louisville is in the hunt for similar phenomena here on Earth.
The red spot is, think of it as a huge extra lens or egg shape of mass. It's just an enormous thing. It sort of quiets down the fluid. It presses it down into the hotter interior so you don't get thunderstorms. But if you go on the edge of the red spot, especially northwest, you get some of the most horrific thunderstorms you're going to find on the Jupiter.
The spot doesn't have an eye, and it isn't fueled by water. There's no ocean over which it forms. What then keeps it going and going?
I've always likened it, in my own view, as like a mini volcano inside of Jupiter.
Actually, an atmospheric volcano. Dr. Baines believes that warmer gases rise from heat deep within the planet. While trying to escape, they create a vortex.
So for some reason, I believe there's extra energy right there.
But it's just a theory. Science is left without answers to that question and others. Current theories cannot quite explain why the spot is so well formed and why it stays in one place. The plot thickened over the years as scientists learned even more.
It became a deeper mystery because instead of everything just sort of smoothly going around the red spot, we saw this turbulence, and there were smaller scale structures that would come and go every day, and it was chaotic and turbulent, and yet the red spot just existed and sailed on.
Jupiter's storms aren't limited to the Great Red Spot. Cloud decks 3 layers thick hover and cover the planet.
If you were inside the atmosphere of Jupiter, you would hear very loud thunder. In fact, the thunder actually travels 4 times faster on Jupiter than it does on Earth. It's about 3,000 miles an hour. So rain falls twice as fast on Jupiter. The charge separation that pulls the positive charge to the top of the clouds, the negative charge to the bottom of the clouds, is twice as efficient on Jupiter for that reason alone, because the rain is falling so much faster. Towers of cumulus convection that you see on Jupiter are 3 times taller. They go up 30 miles, whereas on Earth they go up 6 or 7 miles.
it would be impossible to survive within the Great Red Spot with its 350-mile-an-hour winds. By comparison, Hurricane Wilma, which had the highest recorded winds of any earthly storm, slammed into the Yucatan Peninsula in 2005 with barely a breath. 175-mile-an-hour blasts. Our weather is simple. Jupiter's is complex.
Now in Jupiter, you just basically have one storm system sort of stacked on another, with lots and lots of room. Basically, these are the storms in their natural state.
These storms move relentlessly within Jupiter's other distinct feature, streams of fierce jets that continually circle the planet. Scientists are only beginning to understand what they are and where they come from.
There's a massive eastward flow of material, and that means materials flowing more than 1.5 football fields per second. That's really moving. You don't want to be in that.
29 other belts and zones of varying widths extend outward from there. They are what give Jupiter its characteristic appearance. They move in alternating directions, some eastward, some westward.
They're much smaller scale, the high latitude jets, than the equatorial one. As far as in comparison to Earth, these are massive, super fast, high-speed winds, and yet they're just going back and forth.
The planet's rotation rate has something to do with it. Jupiter generates a lot of energy because it really moves.
So the very nature of the spinning causes Jupiter to not just have one jet stream, but many jet streams going in opposite directions along the planet. And so you can see these zones. So what you have is an exaggerated version of Earth's basic weather pattern.
The spectacular swirls are created in surface clouds where the zones meet.